Andy, this is Dr. P. Ravikiran, General Physician and Diabetologist at Robotics Hospital, Champakat. As a part of patient awareness program, today let's discuss how insulin works in the body. Let's get started. Why this topic matters? Most patients know insulin controls sugar, but don't know how it controls sugar. If you are able to understand how insulin works, we will be able to make some definitive changes in our life to feel better. Helps patient reverse prediabetes and manage type 2 diabetes. Also, when we know how insulin works, it increases our adherence to medications. We know how these medications work and it helps us have better outputs. What exactly is insulin? మీకు రైట్ సైడ్ లో స్క్రీన్ లో కనపడుతున్న చైన్ చూడండి, దట్ ఈస్ ద హ్యూమన్ ఇన్సులిన్ విచ్ ఇస్ ప్రొడ్యూస్డ్ naturally by the body, which controls our sugars. Insulin is a hormone made by pancreatic beta cells, which acts like a key that opens the door for glucose to enter cells. Without insulin, glucose remains in blood, high sugar, long-term complications. What happens is whenever the insulin acts as a key to the door, when insulin is not able to open the door, then the food particles remain more in outside blood that increases the sugars. So it acts like a key which has to function properly. Where is insulin produced? In pancreatic anatomy. Pancreas is one organ which produces many hormones in the body, exocrine and endocrine function. The exocrine function is the digestive enzymes which are used for digesting the food, whereas endocrine hormones like insulin and glucagon are produced by the pancreas, which help in absorbing the sugars produced by the body. So, pancreas is a 6-inch organ located behind the stomach, contains clusters called islets of Langerhans. Beta cells inside the islets produce insulin. Alpha cells produce glucagon, whereas beta cells produce insulin. Insulin and glucagon act in complete opposite directions. Act in opposite directions. When insulin reduces the sugar, glucagon increases sugar. Vice versa. Balance between insulin and glucagon keeps the sugar stable. Insulin, the key door mechanism. Blood sugar ready to enter the cell, but when there is insulin resistance, the insulin key will not be able to open the door. Then there is a need for multiple keys to open the door, which is insulin resistance. And as as the insulin resistance keeps on piling up, there is a need for more and more keys to open a single door to push the sugars into the cell. See here, there are only four sugar molecules. Four sugar molecules. Initially, one key insulin molecule is sufficient, but later it becomes four sugar molecules and four insulin molecules. Later it becomes four sugar molecules and much more insulin molecules. You eat, glucose increases. Beta cells sense the rise of sugars, release insulin. The insulin attaches to the receptors on cell surface. The GLUT4 receptor open, glucose moves on the blood to cell, sugar levels drop to normal. Major actions of insulin: muscles, liver, fat cells, and overall. In muscles, insulin helps in uptaking the glucose into the cells used for energy, stores glucose as glycogen, whereas in liver, stops liver from producing glucose. Whenever there is insulin in the body, liver would be shut down and prevents production of glucose. In insulin resistance, this function is lost. Therefore there is high insulin sugar production by the liver also when there is blood sugars in the blood. Then there is also high blood sugars. Livers generally which stop producing insulin don't stop and causes high sugars. In fat cells low sugars are converted into fat and are stored as energy because insulin is a hormone of storage. It helps store sugars in the muscle, in the fat, and in the liver. Overall, stabilized blood glucose supports growth, repair, and normal metabolism. When insulin is released, insulin is Insulin is released in phases, first phase and second phase. In first phase, it's a rapid release, happens within 10 minutes of eating. Whenever we consume our food, there is a rapid spike in insulin which prevents the sugar spike. This is the phase lost early in type 2 diabetes. That's why what we observe is whenever a patient consumes his food, within the first half an hour, 1 hour, 1.5 hour, the sugar spike would be more than 100 and 150. When a normal person consumes his food, the normal fasting would be somewhere around 100. His post lunch would be rising to up to 140 or 145. A maximum rise of 30 to 40 mg per deciliter of sugars rise is seen. Whereas in a diabetic patients, we have seen rises as high as 200 to 250. Initially, the fasting sugars would be around 130, 140. Postprandial, the sugars would be somewhere around 300, 350. because there is a loss of the first phase rapid release. When the second phase is also lost, there is a continuous postprandial high, which is dangerous. As the diabetes progresses, this phase also gets affected. What happens when insulin is low? Glucose cannot enter cells, blood sugar rises sharply, bodies break down fat because as the glucose cannot enter the cells would be starving. They start utilizing the fats for energy, which increases the ketones, which is one of the most medical emergency a diabetic patient can ever have. Diabetic ketoacidosis. This is one of the most dangerous complications the diabetic patients come to us. When the insulin is low, secondary to beta cell failure, the patients require lifelong insulin. Without insulin, the condition becomes life-threatening. What happens when insulin doesn't work properly? Insulin is present but doesn't work properly. That's insulin resistance. Here, what happens is cells do not respond. As the cells do not respond, beta cells produce more insulin to compensate. Over years, beta cells get tired. Sugar increases gradually, which is initially called as prediabetes, next type 2 diabetes, next leads to complications. The vicious cycle of insulin resistance. Whenever a patient has a high carb diet, there is a high insulin levels. Cells become resistant to the high insulin levels. Body produces even more insulin. Pancreas becomes exhausted. Sugar levels increase permanently. This is the root cause of type 2 diabetes. Insulin's role in fat gain. Insulin is a storage hormone. Excess carbs, excess insulin, fat storage increases. Low insulin, fat burning, high insulin, fat storage. Therefore, in diabetic patients, in patients who have insulin resistance, there is no fat burning because in view of the insulin resistance, the insulin levels are high. High insulin will lead to fat storage. That's why whenever the patient consumes even a small amount of food, that goes into the fat storage and not in the fat burning. This is why diet planning is important in reversal. Insulin and excess. Insulin excess is a GLUT4 activity. This is the same GLUT4 activity which the insulin opens. This is the worst door which insulin used to open. Exercise increases the GLUT4 activity without the major need for insulin. Even when there is small amount of insulin also, when you do good amount of physical activity, the GLUT4 cells open automatically without needing much insulin. This is why exercise reduces resistance and improves blood sugar even with the same diet. Insulin and weight loss or weight gain. If insulin is high, the hunger increases, fat storage increases, weight gain occurs. If insulin is reduced naturally, fat burning occurs naturally, weight loss becomes easier, and diabetes control improves. Practical ways to improve insulin action. In food, we are advised to go for low refined carbohydrates like whole meats, whole grains, balance protein with each meal, fiber-rich vegetables, avoid sugary drinks, and controlled portion sizes. Portion control is the most important thing in diet changes that we advise for patients. We provide them with diet charts at Owners Robotics Hospital so that they can control their sugars. Exercise, 30 to 45 minutes is the bare minimum a person needs every day. If it's more than 30 to 35, 45 minutes, it's even better. Strength training 3 times a week because strength training increases the muscle mass, it increases the insulin sensitivity, it reduces the insulin resistance, and is very beneficial for the body. Post-meal walking 10 to 15 minutes is one of the major things that can help us reduce our sugars naturally without the need for insulin because exercise activities activates GLUT4 receptors, which would naturally reduce sugars. Sleep. Whenever there is sleep is of less than 6 hours, the insulin sensitivity reduces by 20 to 30%. So always people who are getting less amount of sleep, make sure you get a good amount of sleep to prevent insulin resistance and to prevent diabetes. Stress reduction. Whenever a person is under stress, the body releases many chemicals. Of them, cortisol is one of the major hormone, which is also called as a stress hormone. Whenever there is a rise in cortisol, the blood sugars increase, and we have to reduce stress by doing yoga, meditation, breathing exercise like JPMR breathing exercise. Insulin sensitizers. There are medications which also help us improve the insulin action. The diabetic medications of them, insulin sensitizers are the metformin and pioglitazone, whereas the hormones which keep on increasing the insulin secretion are DPP4 inhibitors and GLP-1 agonists. SGLT2 inhibitors reduce sugar through urine, reduce insulin load, improve kidney and heart health. When is insulin therapy needed? Insulin therapy is needed in the following conditions. When the patient has type 1 diabetes, the patient always needs a type 1 diabetes insulin because when there is no insulin for type 1 diabetes, he will definitely expire from the diabetic ketosis, which is the most dangerous complication a diabetic patient can ever have. In type 1 diabetes, always there is a need for insulin. In latent autoimmune diabetes of adults, which is a newer variation, early insulin is recommended to prevent further complications. In type 2 diabetes with very high sugars, where there is pancreatic cell exhaustion and there is no insulin proper production, there also there may be a need for insulin. Whenever a person is going through any stress in the form of infections, surgeries, where the physical stress is high, they may need for insulin because there won't be any insulin reserves present in the body to control them. Pregnancy diabetes requiring control. This is one of the major aspects where the insulin plays an important role. Whenever we advise the patient to do diet changes, lifestyle changes, medication management, and when that's not sufficient to control sugar, pregnancy needs insulin to control sugar. Or when the complications are worsening. Myths versus facts. Myth. Insulin is only for serious cases. No, the fact is early insulin can save beta cells and reverse glucose toxicity. Insulin causes complications. Poor sugar control causes complications. Insulin helps prevent them. The thing is, many patients who are on insulin, in view of their drug incompliance and not able to follow the proper protocol, they develop complications. With insulin is addictive. Insulin is a natural hormone your body needs. Insulin is never addictive. Insulin is a natural hormone your body generally needs for its survival. If you're unsure whether your body is producing enough insulin or you have insulin resistance, you can visit Owners Robotics Hospital for a complete evaluation. For more education, you can follow us on social media. We're happy to help. If you or any family relatives want to undergo a diabetes reversal, we at Owners Robotics Hospital are providing diabetes reversal campaigns that would help you attain your health naturally back and lead a healthy life. Thank you.